Welcome to another episode of Sober Not Sane. Before we get going, we need to thank Liz from the camera store. If you need a camera for anything, like taking pictures of your kids or doing stuff like this, they can help you out at the camera store. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe and like us on YouTube. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you watch podcasts. I think we're on almost everything. Are we not, John?
We are.
Yeah, we're on everything. We rule the world. Maybe not the world, a little bit. Our guest this week, Gin Fedotov. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. How are you?
You know what? I'm okay. You know, it'll all be fine.
Yes, hopefully.
Within 3 hours, I'll be asleep, and then my thoughts will be my own.
This is an early evening. Why so early?
Why so early? Because I get up really early. I used to do a morning TV show,
Gotcha.
and I got used to getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
I don't go to bed before 7.
Good for you.
I'm completely a nocturnal animal. I think I'm addicted to the neurotransmitters that are released when you're sleep deprived, and I ride that for as long as I can.
Yeah, you know, there's a reason that they keep prisoners sleep deprived to drive them insane and have them break. Just a thought.
I think it's working, but I don't think I ever had that sanity ever.
Issue?
I was fighting
Never
my par-
burdened by sanity?
I think so. I always fought my parents not to go to have that nap. I would
Yeah.
pretend to be asleep, and then as soon as they leave, close the door, I would do my own stuff. I cannot handle the idea of, the fear of missing
You might
out.
miss something.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I used to be like that. I got older. I don't care anymore. There's really not that much going on for me anymore.
I guess, but waking up, at 3:30, you get a big chunk of the day doing something interesting.
Oh, you got an 8-hour day in before lunch.
Then what do you do?
Nap and then stay up for a while and then go back to bed.
That's not bad.
That shift completely takes over your life. Can you tell me, describe what you do?
I am a passionate storyteller.
Okay.
So I when I can, I perform in front of a camera as an actor. And when I can't, I participate in productions sometimes as a COVID safety officer nowadays because of,
Yeah, COVID.
the business. But also I try to write, direct, produce, and I like telling stories.
Showbiz.
That's complicated. So I like
It's a
telling
big business, show business.
Yes, but I don't do it for entertainment purposes. So here's my shtick in terms of
To punish the viewer.
a little bit. I like stories
okay.
that are transformative. I want,
Okay.
if I'm telling a story, whether it's as an actor or as a director, producer, writer, I would like to choose a story that changes the person to the degree that they're thinking after the viewing of whatever I produced is done, which means it's not for purely entertainment purposes, but it engages a monologue inside of the person's head to try to digest whatever they watched.
Yeah. See, you know what? I like jokes like that. I like jokes that hurt a little.
They're the best.
I like the ones when they start to laugh and then realize what they're laughing at and then try to stop.
And then laughter turns into sobbing and then into showers where nobody will notice
If I
how
don't,
much
oh,
you're
you know
crying.
what? I was going to say I don't think I've ever made anybody cry doing stand-up, but I have.
Do tell what happened.
No, I can't.
It was that bad.
Oh, I might have been a little out of my mind, and somebody kind of was. She started it. I'll put it that way, and then I just
Okay.
pounded on her until she started crying, and I realized, oh, you've really hit the nail on the head and destroyed this person's. Then it gets to where the rest of the audience is like, oh, that was really mean. But I'm not like that anymore. I'm a kinder, gentler person.
Comedy that doesn't make people cry at the end of the act. That's good.
That's my new goal.
I like it.
Yes, or grab their things and run for the car.
That's also a good strategy, actually. Just grab whatever you see on the table and start running. I've done that before.
They're your chicken wings. You paid for them.
Yes.
You take those.
Unfortunately, the bones and everything, I just, I have a backpack and I just
Load them up.
later.
So, where can people see you telling your stories? I know you have a YouTube channel.
I do. I review films,
Mhm.
and I'm not the usual reviewer which reviews everything. I only review stuff I love, and something I have something mean to say about, I just don't review because there's a lot of that, and who needs more of that? But I do a lot of indie stuff. I used to
Yeah.
until I joined the union, and now I don't do much, unfortunately. What I'm proud about is a small web series called Private Dicks. It's basically about private detectives, the mafia, and I play a guy that used to be in the mafia and now is trying to help good guys get out of trouble. And I've played the same role for like 5 years.
Wow, that's great.
I know, and it's being released in smaller installments of 10, 15-minute episodes. It's written and directed by J.D. Hodge, who is an amazing guy who gets stuff done with nothing. He started with, one of those old cameras that used to almost use VHS tapes.
Right. Yeah.
And he did his own sound and everything. And I had an interview in his backyard, an audition. It was the weirdest interview ever. I arrive. I have to walk by a beehive, and I don't like bees. Nobody does, I think. And we had an interview. He was reading and doing the audition. I thought I bombed the thing. And a year later, a guy that I met, an actor, a local actor, he's the local George Clooney. His name is Chingiz Javeri. Anyway, so he is posting online that he's doing this role. I'm like, hey, I auditioned for that. You took a role from me. I connect with the director and say, hey, dude, I didn't hear back from you. And this is when I was naive and thought after an audition, you're supposed to hear something, which is not the case. You're probably
No, they can be unkind.
right.
Most of the time, you don't want to know.
Which is, if you didn't hear anything, that's good.
Yeah.
So I asked, hey, what happened? Why didn't I get the role? And he said, you know what? It wasn't fitting for you, but I have this other thing. And then it turned into a 5-year shtick, which we just wrapped the final episode at the end of last year.
That's great.
I know.
See,
I
but
love
you know
it.
what? In my mind, it's okay to not be the right guy for a part, but obviously you impressed the guy, so we thought of you for something else.
With indie cinema, it's a little bit weird because if you're willing to do stuff for free without asking much in return, you pretty much have a good chance of being in it. In fact, I think 50% of anybody who wanted to be an actor in Calgary for the last 5 years got their first shot at that, the private show.
Doing the freebie.
Yes. But it was an amazing experience. It was my first, cops being on set for stuff we weren't supposed to do. And I call
Right.
it on set because we did most of our stuff guerrilla style. I'll tell you a tiny
Gun
story.
and run.
Yes, but literally with guns. So we're pretending to do a shootout between two gangs, around 15 people with realistic-looking guns. A cop drives in with on a pickup truck, and there's an M16 on his driver's passenger seat. He comes out. Now, I'm stupid when it comes to that. I had no idea what I'm supposed to do. Everybody puts their gun on the ground. I put mine
Put holster right back
in my
yeah.
belt and just cover it with my shirt because I don't want the gun to go away. I don't know what JD told this guy, but he supervises for the next half hour. The cop stays there to ensure that we're safe, and we finish shooting. Like, this was a huge offense where, we didn't have guns with orange tips and anything. He could have given us a huge ticket, put us in the
Right.
back of the car. I do not know what, but it turned out great. So it's an amazing experience to see your work on camera. I feel my best work is still on somebody's hard drive. Nobody
Right.
will ever see it. But JD edits and puts it online, and people can actually see me goof around with other people. It's great.
That's great. I'll give you as an American who has shot many a gun, the sticking it in your pants after you've been firing it. Have you ever fired a real gun?
I did.
Do you recall how hot the barrel gets?
Not at all. I was in shock and awe of the sound.
It
and
is
the
loud.
flames. Yes.
But yeah, like the barrel gets like burning hot, and these guys they'll shoot away and then, oh, there you go. It's like, okay, you're gonna have a scar from that in general.
It's a good story. Somebody says, hey, first of all, they will see the scar, so that's already an accomplishment. And then they ask, tell me the story behind the scar, and you're like, I was shooting a gun. Right?
And I
That's a good
thought
story.
I would shove the gun in my pants.
And it worked out great. They weren't real guns; they were airsoft. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I honestly feel stories that have meaning, whether it's to whoever wrote it, are more interesting than stories that are there just to entertain.
Right.
I'm not, taking away from stories that are just to entertain, like a
Yep.
regular rom-com.
Yeah.
Nothing bad with that. In fact, I think last year there were more than 250 titles released with the word Christmas in it, and they're the Christmas Hallmark movie.
Yeah, Hallmark, you know what? Their channel makes an amazing amount of films.
Which have
pretty
similar
stunning.
plots, and it's a
Yeah.
factory process.
It's Christmas. There's kind of only one story.
I don't know. There's many stories around Christmas, and by the way, around that time, there's a lot of holidays happening. It's the first time that I've seen a Hanukkah rom-com released around the same time.
Yeah.
And it was, I actually watched it because I thought, okay, is this going to be the same Christmas tropes or is it going to be different? And it was significantly different. So I would love to see a Diwali, love story, Kwanzaa, something that, happens around the holidays for other cultures.
Involves the rest of the world.
Would be very interesting and very different. I think the different is what makes things interesting nowadays.
Yeah, you know what my thing is, and this was an issue I had working in news. I didn't really do the news, but that was the environment I was in. They always immediately make it as scary and frightening for the viewer as you possibly can. And that's why I like your idea of good reviews. And even if you had one and went, didn't care for that. This one, though, and it's okay not to like something. It's art. When you get down to it, it's art, right? But the positivity of giving people good things to watch, I like that idea.
It's not only that. I understand all of the hard labor that goes into producing, even if it ends up being a terrible product. It's still a lot of hard work. Yeah. And I have no right, especially because I'm in this business, to, diminish that effort, to say, hey, this was crap, even though I might not have enjoyed it. But first of all, it's not consensus. My opinion is really nobody's opinion except for my own.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, even not the best productions have something in them that I love. I enjoy reviewing short films.
Right.
Short films are, I think, the legit art form where there's no producer that has oversight of what's the end product. It's just the artist creating something that is the closest to their vision.
Right.
In films, that's very difficult to do because there's so many cooks in the kitchen, right? Exactly. So the short films are the true art form that really translate somebody's dreams, visions, nightmares onto screen with limited resources. That's very difficult to do. And I respect that a lot. And I feel anybody who is brave enough to put their vision out there in form of a short film is really gutsy and brave.
Yeah, it is. It is something to put something out there, and I don't know if you so much want it to be liked, or it depends on what you're looking for, I guess, out of the product you're making.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't do it just because they want other people to enjoy it. I have a fantastic filmmaker friend, Amir Javid, who puts out films that relate to who he is. He's a newcomer to Canada, and he's a young newcomer, and there's a lot of, I guess, turmoil when it comes to what you're supposed to do in his culture. He's from Pakistan. And so the expectations of the society and the parents on the youth on what you're supposed to do instead of having choices. And he puts all of that in his short films, and they're incredibly insightful in what goes inside of somebody that I'm not very familiar with. But it opens up a dialogue about you view the world in a very different way. I want to learn from you, and I hope that we can, create something together. And I really hope I will be able to make films with him in the future. He's one of the most brilliant directors in all of Alberta. But my point is the perspective of different people that is put in short films. It's extremely brilliant and bright and interesting, regardless of the subject, which might be terror, action, comedy, whatever.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like seeing your life being put onto, a show?
Oh, when the American in Canada?
Yes.
It was a production with, I think that ultimately the product was good. I wasn't happy that I didn't star in it. That was a interesting discussion. I don't know why I would not star in a story about me, but I was told, well, we need an actor with chops. And Rick Roberts was the guy that played my character. And yeah, I mean, he's good. He's a actor. He can act. And historically, if you look at any kind of a sitcom feel, it's really, they don't care that much about whether the lead can act. He's supposed to be funny, and it's his story. Seinfeld was the worst part of Seinfeld. I mean, he was a terrible actor.
Stuff around him was interesting. I don't disagree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you look at everyone else on that show, he was surrounded by great people. And I think that's a key to making a stand-up work as the lead in a show.
That's fair. So was it, I'm not going to say an accurate representation, but do you feel it somewhat reflected your experiences in a way that you felt, yeah, that kind of hits some real aspects?
Some real, yes. A lot of it was very, for lack of a better way to put it, very CBC.
That's fair.
And it's kind of, I mean, they have a stamp that they use to make everything they make. And, it's funny because I was talking to somebody about the going to Just for Laughs. And somebody said, well, you got to admit they do comedy well. And I said, no, what they do is find good comics and they film us doing what we do well. And it's really not, basically, they're like mini documentaries of what the comedy night would be like. They're not really, you don't get a huge amount of direction for your content. You don't, sometimes you write to it, but mostly CBC films comedians doing what they do.
It's interesting to see that process. Would you ever do it again? Like, let's imagine that tomorrow Netflix says, hey, Jebb, we're interested in having, 30, 45 minutes special on you. Would you go for it, or would you say,
It'd depend on what the buyout was.
It's fair.
I mean, honestly, it'd be a cash decision. But to me, when I was younger in my career, it was like, okay, then you burn all of your material, and people see you on Netflix and they pay to go see you live, and they're going to see the same thing they saw on Netflix. Well, you got to have another 45 minutes to an hour, or they're not going to be there. Well, I've seen all this shit. Why am I
paying for this? I get you.
Yeah. Whereas if you're doing the documentaries, and I was going to ask you, you brought up Netflix. Do you find that with COVID and so many people at home and watching so much more content, for the shorter films and for the type of projects you like to do, is there more of an audience for it or more of an opportunity for people to see it?
I believe there's a lot of opportunity for people to see things in a platform that caters to an algorithm that figures out what your preference is. Unfortunately, the platforms that currently have short films are not done that way. And so I did 2 shorts in my very short directing, writing career so far. And I understood 2 things. I create things without the expectation that somebody will ever see them, because I need the process of exorcism from nightmare to film,
right,
in order to feel fulfilled. And the second thing is that there isn't a true distribution platform for short film that has any revenue stream for the short filmmaker whatsoever.
Are there other countries that have that?
I don't think so. There's very few that promise that there will be some kind of profit sharing if people subscribe, donate. And, I feel the true platform for short film that is worldwide is YouTube. Nothing wrong with it, but It's very difficult to hit the amount of views, legitimate views, full-through views, in order to get any revenue from it. And I mean, after you recoup all of the money you spent.
But there's so much content out there. Like, how do you... I mean, I could literally, if I had the time, I could sit and watch something different every 10 minutes.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom. Whereas I find a series, and then I watch it tip to tail, and then occasionally I don't make it I make it midway through the series and go, oh, okay.
That was enough of your time.
Yeah, but I think the reason that I'm like that is the producers and the money people are sinking so much money into them. Like the saying in the U.S. is, well, I really like this project. I don't see 100 episodes. And they want to get to 100 episodes because that's when a gigantic payout comes. So that's what the producers and the backers are looking for, is for this show to go on forever. You know, like the Big Bang Theory. I mean, even the actors got to be sick of that show. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
what are you going to do? Like, how long are these guys going to live in the same 2 rooms?
For as long as they get paid $100,000 per episode.
No,
it's
they're
not
getting over
the
$1 million
worst.
now.
I guess, but when they started like season 4 or 5, they were like making enough money to just keep, printing checks
Yeah.
for themselves, doing what they're used to do. Were you ever a fan of Quibi?
Of what?
Quibi. Quibi was
I have. You know what? I've seen it. I don't recall it. Remind me.
Quibi was a brilliant idea that failed, and I was surprised it failed. The basic idea was it was a platform like Netflix with original content shot in a professional way with, high quality actors. Think Kiefer Sutherland, for example. And they had 10 to 15-minute episodes designed specifically to be watched on a portable device, where it was a tablet or a phone. You would subscribe and you get exclusive shows. And I thought that's going to fly because people are used to 10, 15-minute size content, bite-sized content. That's why they call it Quibi, quick bites. And they had such a huge backing. They had more than $2 billion backing this platform. It didn't last more than 6 months.
So theoretically, you look at the paperwork on it and you go, how could that fail?
And what I found is when it's short format, people don't care as much about the quality and the star power behind it. I prefer to scroll through 51-minute videos and find a 10, 15-minute hit that I'm going to spend the other, 10, 15 minutes on,
Right.
rather than pay your subscription to have something serialized. Because if it is serialized, I'm okay spending the half hour to 45 minutes of whatever it is that I'm enjoying watching. I'll give you an example of Yellowstone. It's a modern-day Western with Kevin Costner.
I like it. I watch it.
I enjoy it, but aside from the fact that it's well-produced, it's cheap, it relies on star power, it has powerful stories, but it's a Western soap opera.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's so popular. The last season number 4, the last episode was watched by 11 million people. It's incredible for nowadays. It's a huge number.
Oh, yeah. And you know what, though? I watched it and I thought, all right, they've kind of called that one in. It was kind of, it wasn't what I was looking for the final season 4 episode.
It wasn't really what we were sold on season 1, 2, and 3 and what the show is going to be.
Exactly.
And hey, the season opener was great. There was a huge shootout.
Yep. Who doesn't like that?
You saw the production well. It was huge. And
Oh,
now
yeah.
what they've done with Yellowstone, it's brilliant. They used the show to springboard 2 new shows.
1883.
And then 6666, the 4-6. So they're doing another show based in Texas. That's why
Oh,
they
the
invest-
4-6's ranch.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? I just heard about that last week at some point.
So part of
But the producer of Yellowstone bought
Yes.
that ranch, the 4-6's. It's a real
Wow.
ranch.
I'm impressed. I mean,
He's doing okay. He's squeaking by, that guy.
Taylor Sheridan.
Yeah.
He rides incredibly well. I'm
Yeah.
blown away. By the way, if you like Taylor Sheridan, check out Mayor of Kingstown.
You know what? What they've started to do too, and maybe you can explain this to me, is they'll start it on an open platform,
Yeah.
and then they go to Paramount Plus, where you have to buy it.
Yes.
So they're doing that to finance what they're doing.
And it works. It's a good bite. Paramount Plus didn't have much of a subscription or viewership. They started with Star Trek Discovery. And then I felt, okay, we're capturing a very small audience. We need to broaden the type of content we do.
Right.
So Mayor of Kingston is very gritty, very adult-oriented. Then you have Yellowstone, which is also adult-oriented, but they have found the type of audience that would pay for a subscription.
Right.
And nowadays, I think it's the future. Big network companies like Comcast and Shaw and whoever provides a cable subscription, you get a lot of channels that you don't watch. And you can't really cherry pick the type of content you want to consume.
Yeah, it's
With
no a la carte.
Exactly. With subscriptions, it's very different. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you have the base of $90 a year, which is very cheap.
Yeah.
And then you can add channels for a 99 up to 99 cents to dollars, $3, and specifically
For
pay
what
for what
you
you want
like.
to watch. That is the way I would prefer to consume my entertainment. I don't like to pay for stuff I never see.
Well, and tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. To me, one of the issues with like local television, it used to be there would be like 2 or 3 channels in an area, like a city this size, and they owned the ad revenue, period. If you wanted to be on television, you had to be on that. Now you can be anywhere on television. So, and even having a hit show on network television does not guarantee a number for the audience so that you can charge the advertisers the money you need to recoup the cost of production.
Absolutely. Well, advertisement is, I wish it was it. Look at platforms that don't have any advertisement at all. Netflix and Amazon, for example, they don't have advertisement between episodes. So where is their revenue aside from the subscription? Where is it coming from? And the reality is people want your money whether you're going to use something or not. Nowadays, everything is on a subscription basis. It's ridiculous.
So they want successes, period.
Yes. But the
I
ridiculous
like
is,
that.
But think of the subscription idea and then apply it to vehicles. They just did it. They literally allow you to buy a vehicle with a remote start for the first 30 days. And if you want to use it any time after, you need to buy it as a subscription.
Satellite radio.
But I mean, that is insanity. If the feature is already there and you paid for the vehicle to start
So the
remotely,
hardware is already there.
why am I paying a subscription to use
I
something
didn't know
that
they
I
were
purchased?
doing that. That's pretty scammy,
I
hey?
know. I mean, was it OnStar or something like that has an
Yeah.
emergency response? How is that different from a 911 call? I don't know, but the OnStar was
You know what?
subscription
I
too.
called OnStar once in a rental, and we were in the Maritimes on a tour, and we had no idea where the next gas station was. And the lady said, "Well, it's really not what we do." And I said, "Well, can you describe to me what the fuck you do? Like what? I'm going to run out of gas in the middle of nowhere, and you can't tell me which way to go to the next. Can you see where I am on the highway? Uh-huh. Can you see what's the closest town in any direction? Well, I can tell you the closest town. I don't know anything about so it was obviously when it first came out, and they really didn't have the information. Now I can go on. In my car has a little TV in it, and I can punch it in and then just hit gas stations, and it'll show me the closest gas station. So I don't even do they even do OnStar anymore?
I imagine there's a similar subscription-based something.
Something.
That's the terror to me is, and by the way, I'm old-fashioned for my age. I was born in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union, and so for me, the idea of a subscription to owe money to someone for something I don't need or want because I made a contract, like let's say a gym subscription, is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And it worked in my detriment. I don't know how to use credit, so I don't have credit because I never use a credit card. Either you have the money to spend it or you don't spend it. And so to me, the idea of a subscription for anything is weird. You owe something that you might not have in the future and you're stuck with it. And to get out of it, it's very difficult. And
But is that true of the TV platforms? I mean, you can just cancel it, can you not?
Yes, but think that you know how to cancel it and you know how to do it. My in-laws, for example, they ask, hey, I would like for my granddaughter to watch Disney movies, so I'm going to subscribe to the Disney platform just to see how it is. And then to unsubscribe, it's not that easy process. And I really feel like some scams. I feel that it's somewhat of a scam of a system that people said, you know what, fine, we're going to let it happen because it makes money and it's not too predatory, but it is. I feel it's
Well,
unhealthy.
yeah, if they make it difficult to unsubscribe. Well, that's the. I mean, I what did? Oh, I had to buy more space on iCloud. Then I get a note from Apple. Okay, for a year because you bought this extra memory or gigs or whatever you want to call it. You get Apple TV for a year for free, but they're going to want a credit card,
Yes.
and then I have to remember at the end of the year to cancel it, or I'm going to start paying.
Yes. That's predatory behavior to me. That's something that I feel banks on the fact that you're going to forget. And if you
Yeah,
call,
banks are a whole nother scam.
yes, but I mean, and nowadays it's very weird. Touching the subject of banks is a little bit interesting to me. The inflation rate today in Canada for last year was 4.5%. One of the biggest inflation rates since the late 80s, early 90s. I
Right.
wasn't here, but I
Which was
looked at
not
the
a good time.
statistics. Not at all. But what's scary to me is if you earn money and you put it in the bank, for that entire year, you're going to lose money. You're not going to make any. Because
Yeah.
the inflation rate is way higher than any of the interest that any bank is going to give you. So you're losing money by not using it. All of the hard work you
which
did,
is a scam of sorts.
right? So our system is unfortunately based on a lot of agreements that the people have let happen that allow private corporations to take your hard-earned money because you willingly give it away.
Well, you know what? At my pasta place, so people come in. My choice, cash. Second, debit because the machine charges. I use Square, which I would recommend. It works really well. It's dead simple to use. And credit card, 4%. I think I pay like 25 cents for a debit interaction, no matter what the value of the sale is. And American Express just puts the boots to you. So it's like 4% or something. And you're like, I had a guy the other day. I could see he had the money in his hand and he's handing me a credit card. I said, "Can you pay in cash?" He said, "Well, I want to put it on my credit card." I said, "Do you feel your bank's having a bad year and they need the help? Because I'm a small business and I'm not having a very good year. I could use the money you're about to pay your bank." And the guy went, "I never thought about it like that." And I said, you didn't have to say like that. Just you never thought. And I think that if people were more mindful about how they're paying for things, it would be better for all of the businesses and especially small businesses.
Absolutely. The profit margin is not that big to allow a chunk of that to pay for interactions where there are monetary transactions. That's very difficult for small businesses. And I'm not saying that it's difficult specifically for yours, but for any small
No, it is.
business, a
No,
small
you can
chunk
say
over
that
time,
you are correct.
a small chunk over
Small
time
amount
becomes
means
big,
a lot.
right? And I feel that opportunity to just let some of your rights go is being purposefully taken. When you have a service agreement that is 20 pages, that is on a tiny font, whether you purchase an app or agree to a service where you are giving away any possibility of liability if something happens, that is done on purpose. So the user doesn't really have an understanding what they're agreeing to. And I feel that's a predatory practice. That's an unfair practice because
Right.
if we read everything that we agree on, we would spend so much time reading the agreements rather than using what we want to use. It's crazy.
Well, which is probably the game.
It is. But it's unfair. We are okay with clicking I accept rather than saying I don't want this. The convenience wins rather than the long-term gain. Where in our society nowadays, to be honest, everything should be long-term, the long game, because the short game we're losing badly.
Rapidly right now.
Right? And I'm
Yeah.
not talking about COVID. I'm talking about the mindset.
Right.
because, hey, this is not the first time the world has been in trouble. We had
No,
a few
there are
world
some.
wars.
There's some. I mean, I remember a bit of school.
Right, so there were a few instances where things were worse. And I feel the repercussions of, yes, I have to wear a mask. Yes, I have to be more wary of how I socially communicate with people. Yes, I have to consider how my workplace is going to be impacted by short staffing and whatnot, is being shown as this huge monster, this life changer, where, let's be honest, uh, the amount of smaller inconveniences that we have to pay the price for, keeping healthy is nothing. We don't have to
Yeah.
go to war. We don't have to shoot somebody or being shot. We, thankfully, most of us have food on our tables, a roof above our heads, and the government
Priorities.
Yes, and the government has really done an amazing job in ensuring that those who don't have an income have at least some ways of supplementing that they
A
could
livable amount.
right? So I feel, at least in Canada, that is we're okay. There's no need to have manifestations about our rights or the lack of, where we should be, having our voices heard about issues that have long-term repercussions, whether it's climate change
But
or economic decline and that kind of stuff.
well, yeah, I was thinking about it driving down here with the Chinook, and I think it was Leonardo
Yes.
DiCaprio that was here, and there was a Chinook, and he was like, "Look, it's climate change," and the crew jumped on board and went, "Yeah, we've never seen anything like that." And it's an Alberta crew, and they're just dicking with him. And he goes back to Hollywood and he's doing interviews like, "I was in the mountains. The snow is going away. We're doomed." And it's just like, God, what do you use your computer for? You could go on and find out that that's a Chinook. Those have been happening here since the original owners.
Yes.
And it's like, how can you be that gullible?
It's difficult to say no to certain status level, because then you're looked at as, hey, first of all, how do you dare to address him? Second of all, how do you dare to tell him he's wrong?
It's a fucking actor. He's not a brain surgeon. He's not curing cancer. He's an actor. He memorizes words somebody else writes.
He's a fantastic actor. Aside
Yeah.
from that, though, I honestly feel that whole The Revenant experience, and I've heard a lot positive and some not so positive instances, it was a very unique case. And I'm truly optimistic Alberta will become a film hub, and it will be a steady revenue stream, not only for the government, but also for people employed in the industry and everything that evolves around the industry.
The
It's
amount
gonna
of,
boom.
and I mean, I honestly, grand total, I think I was on one film. It was one of those clever little Christmas movies. It was called Carol's Christmas. You can probably guess the plot. It's, really? You went with that for renaming Christmas Carol? But the amount of people employed on that set and the amount of money that's brought into this province, and I think some of the conservative governments they can't see past oil and gas. They think that's the only industry that brings money into the province, and it's very short-sighted.
Nowadays, there's a big shift, and I feel the current government has created a platform for good tax breaks where they're bringing in fantastic shows.
And you know what? I think maybe it's that phrase that pisses the regular guys off, where you go, they get tax breaks. Well, why do they get a tax break and I don't? Well, you're not about to spend $16 million making a film here.
It's the return on investment. For every dollar of a tax break, it returns at least $1.35 back in taxes, and at least $1.70 back into the economy. It's a huge 350% return. It would be silly not to provide that tax break.
So yeah. And what other industry can say that?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer.
I mean, maybe
to
I
that.
don't know the numbers on oil and gas. Obviously, it's been the cash cow for many years here, and the planet is not going to stop using oil and gas soon.
No, I don't think ever, sadly. But it's not the worst thing ever.
Not now. You know what? And honestly, from any research I've done, the Canadian oil and gas industry does a very responsible job with what they're doing. There are other places in the world that are horrendous,
Yes. When
but
I used
nobody cares.
when I used to be a kid, my mom told me, look at what's on your plate, don't look at what's on your neighbor's plate. And if I apply the same mentality to the way Canadians are dealing with their climate change adjustment, and this comes from an outsider perspective, although I've been in Canada for 16 years, we could do better. And,
Yeah,
and absolutely,
anybody could.
there's way worse places in the world, absolutely, that are very responsible with their resources. But Canada is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world, on the planet. We have lithium, we have uranium, we have precious metals that are used in electronics, oil and gas. And unfortunately, we are forced to sell it at subpar cost to the nearest neighbor or to whoever's bidding at, not fair
Yeah.
prices. And I
To the
think,
barely highest bidder.
yes. And that is very detrimental because a lot of natural resources that will be competitive in the future are not being looked at, and we're still, kicking the bucket of let's still try to get oil profitable.
Oh, the best was we're going after coal. Really? Really? That was pretty archaic.
Yes, it was. But there's countries that wanted it, though. That's the thing.
No, I get it, but it's where you're looking.
Yes.
I mean, there has to be a balance, Like everybody was complaining about the oil sands up in Fort Mac and north of there. And I said to somebody, "You ever been up there? They're destroying the environment." Yeah, it's a little plain up there. And one of the companies that I worked for once, I went up there and I did a couple of parties for them, and it was called a Stage 4 completion. And they had gone over and topographically, mapped out the exact earth that they were going to affect. They cleaned off all the top soil. They did what they needed to do. Then they brought it all back in and topographically made it the same and started planting trees and bushes and bringing in animals. And it was like, how much more responsible? You need the oil and gas, period. How much more responsible do you want a company to be?
That situation is ideal, and I wish it was the case in all of the oil explorations all across Alberta. The oil sands, I think, are a good example of how things can be done in a positive way.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of examples where oil has not been managed environmentally responsibly, and I'm not even talking about land ownership and the effect on the original land owners. To be honest, and this is coming from a guy that was affected by Chernobyl. One of the reasons why we left the Ukraine is because Chernobyl contaminated the land for
Right.
hundreds of thousands of years. But I'm a big proponent that if people use nuclear energy as the bridge between fossil fuels and renewable energies, it's actually very viable. And Canada had the opportunity to do that. I mean, CANDU reactors were exported worldwide, and out of 19 nuclear reactors currently active in the country, 18 are in Ontario. And the rest don't produce energy. They are created for medical purpose.
Right. Okay.
Radioactive materials. And I really wish when Canada had the opportunity to invest in that infrastructure, they would have done so. So there would be a bridge for whenever we will have to phase, and unfortunately we'll have to phase out any kind of fossil fuel, simply because the ratio of payoff, it's not going to be there. You will have to invest more.
Won't be equal. So, which is kind of like things that bite you in the ass, moving all of the, there were plants that made vaccines.
Yes.
And they got moved out of country.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure why. And then all of a sudden, hey, look, we shouldn't have done that.
People have the short-term vision,
Yeah.
not the long plan. And I mean, I have a very small niece. She's close to 5. And I wish that when I am 80, she has a beautiful place to live with enough food, shelter, and all of the beautiful things we want, without the fear of how is that going to be tomorrow, where I can leave this
Right.
earth knowing that people I love that are younger will have something at least as good as I had it.
So, being that you're from where you're from, when you look at people that are, they're the anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, and Canada, I think the government-wise, could not be kinder in trying to push people towards making what I personally feel, and you can send me a note if you disagree, I don't really care, a responsible decision for your neighbors. But they're like, no, it's my right not to wear a mask. Well, it's not a right to drink and drive because you might kill somebody. So if you
Yeah.
don't wear a mask and you pass on what at that time was, pretty much a deadly virus, you're risking other people's lives. But your idea is nobody's going to make me put on a mask. It's my right to not wear a mask. Well, it's stupid. You're just being a shitty neighbor.
It comes twofold. I don't disagree with you, and I mean I'm currently in the COVID support industry to stop infections
On the
affecting
set.
productions.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, COVID has been a job giver. Right? But
That is the most half-full statement anybody's ever made on here. That was great. Thank you.
But to be honest, I feel if people feel that their rights are being infringed, they need to understand that rights extend only as far as they don't affect others. And you put it very specifically and very clearly. If you drive and drink and you kill somebody, your rights are done because they affected somebody else. Masks are, I mean,
I'm honestly, and I'm not 1,000% convinced that they work. I don't know. Like, I'm not smart enough to know whether they do or not.
They do. Otherwise, it's an industry
COVID
that's
guy.
scamming all of us.
He's a
so
COVID
well.
officer.
No, I feel, hey, if I break a leg, I'm gonna go and
Get a cast.
Yeah, if I have a rusty nail go through my hand, I'm gonna get the tetanus shot. If I trust medical professionals to that degree, I'm gonna trust them enough to say wearing a mask helps stop the spread.
Yeah.
And I wish those people that feel that wearing a mask and having a shot is really infringing on their rights, they should remember when they are sick, their rights really don't matter much because you don't have many choices. You're going on a governmental bed, risking some nurses and doctors' life because they're exposing them to a deadly virus. And at that point, people's rights don't matter. Hey, please save me. It's not going to change whether you believe in masks or
Well,
not.
we were going to save you, but you were kind of being an ass about it.
Yes. But I believe if people make that choice of not having a shot, of not having a mask, they still should be treated equally in terms of healthcare. And to be honest, I'm going to bring in religion. I know it's very stupid. But the idea is...
And by the way, we should say you're not saying that religion is stupid, but
No,
you feel
having
it's
the
stupid to bring it up.
Yes, there's three things you don't talk about ever. One of them is religion.
That was my water bottle, sorry.
I impressed you that much. But the idea is people have the right to have any kind of belief.
Yep.
But belief shouldn't affect scientific fact. And unfortunately, the general consensus, the scientific fact about vaccines and masks and their efficacy should, be respected as such. You can believe whatever you want or not, but still follow the science. And the only thing not to follow the science is better science. If you have a better scientific fact that proves they don't work, please show it to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I love being on set, but I would love to be on set without having to wear a mask for 12 hours.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm also probably, I'm okay with wearing a mask for as long as it keeps me on set, whether I'm holding a light or I'm sanitizing
But
something.
would you say that because of where you grew up, the fact would be, if talking about infringing on rights, if they decide everybody there is going to wear a mask, it's going to happen.
Yes. Have you seen a very funny YouTube video where a SWAT team breaks into somebody's house and gives them a shot?
No, no. Is that the Ukraine to a T?
That's Russia.
Russia?
Nowadays, Russia
Was
really,
it? Yeah.
they go to your house and they give you a shot. And if you are refusing, they will make you. The issue of rights, though, I'm used to not having many, and so I'm okay with not having many. And whenever I have a right or two, I'm celebrating, regardless of how small and ridiculous that right might be. But when people grew up with having all of the rights, I'm going to call it that way, it does. I understand their perspective when it feels that some rights are being taken away from them by telling them you must do something or you must
Yeah.
not do something. I get that.
You know what? I've never liked being told what to do. But I even, like, I posted, I've said it on the show before, but in January of 2019, I had a really bad flu for 2 weeks, and my doctor just, once it all came out, she goes, "Oh, you had COVID." Then, so I've got triple vaxxed. I can't, my capacity in my lungs is down, and it's, may or may not come back. I'm 63 years old. So anybody that tells me, oh, it's a farce, I'm like, oh no, trust me, get it. Tell me if it's real or not. And you know what? I don't like having to wear a mask, but even the thought, I think they've come up with trying to change their mentality of you have to get, and I think people, the word vaccine gets in their head, and they're like, okay, I'm going to get a vaccine, then I'll never get sick. And really, what the vaccines seem to be doing is making sure you don't die.
Helping that.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
I wish it was. I wish this vaccine was just like the polio vaccine.
Yeah, which took, what, 15, 18 years to figure out?
You know what's the funny part?
Took a long time.
Yes, but the funny part about the polio vaccine is that the eradication of polio was not due to government involvement. It was because the Rotarians, the Rotary Club International, distributed vaccines where governments couldn't or wouldn't.
See, and you know what? That would be a great film. Rotarians saving the world.
And I believe in the power
I would watch that.
Right?
Yeah.
But the power of the non-for-profit to change people's minds is incredible. If non-for-profits took some funds and resources to bring masks and vaccines where governments couldn't,
I'm sure there's some out there that have.
Probably.
But do you think it's because of their approach? Compared to the
Yes.
government likes the approach of laws and edicts, and this is what you're going to do, and we're the government, we're going to tell you what to do. Whereas the Rotarians are non-authoritative, and they walk in, we're here to help you.
Yep.
So if the government could take maybe a little kinder approach to it, is that a good way to put it?
Yes, but at the same time, the government is not here to be your friend. The government is here to make sure that nobody messes up the circus.
Trust me, I grew up in the U.S. I know about your country. No, I don't.
I get it.
I know nothing.
No, but honestly, governments are created there to keep order. They're not there to create friendships. They're there to ensure that there's equal distribution of wealth, and that's never going to be achieved. Sad, but capitalist societies. Also, communist societies don't have equal distribution of wealth. To keep order, keep you safe, healthy, fed, and then hopefully give you choices. Whether it's through education, to innovation, through policy making, right? So that's what the government is there to do. And I think the Canadian government is doing great. Whether they can have a friendlier approach, sure, but there's always going to be that kind of person that's going to say, yeah, it's my right to say no still. And yeah, it's true. It's true.
It is, you're right, but expect if you decide to say no and it comes down to it, they're going to have a SWAT team break down your door and give you a shot, which they will never do here. But I'm actually in a positive way looking at the new Omni that's come along as it's lack of a better way to put it, a dumbed down version of this, and it's weaker, and it doesn't kill you. But I would assume, with my limited, since I let my medical degree slide, that it gives you some sort of antibody help once you've had it.
Sure. Listen, the regular flu kills people.
Oh, and a lot of them. It was
And-
shocking. I looked
Yes.
up the numbers.
And we would have a better chance of fighting off the regular flu if we wore masks and got the regular flu shot. But it went from a pandemic to an endemic, where we all know there is going to be a new flu virus, and you have the choice of how you protect yourself against it. I honestly feel we'll get there with COVID,
Yeah.
whichever variant will have.
I've never had a regular flu shot.
And I have one every year.
You know, and here was my theory. Here's the problem to me, is that you're getting a shot for last year's flu.
Yes.
And everybody was saying, oh, they got this vaccination way too fast. I'm thinking, good. They're actually chasing the issue that's going on right this second.
Yes.
I'm not getting the flu shot for last year's flu. And by the time next year's flu season rolls around, that flu has mutated
Yes.
into something the vaccination does or does not work on. But I will also, you know what? I go to any country in the world and I will eat street food and I never get sick because I have always eaten street food, and I think I have an immunity level built up. No,
Well done.
is it not the best food though?
Street food, absolutely.
Yeah, always, you know.
I always get sick.
We'd go to Mexico, I'd eat tacos that came out of it looked like an oil drum cut in half they were making the taco meat in. I didn't care. It was delicious.
I lived 12 years in Mexico. I was blessed by moving from
Oh,
the
where?
Ukraine to Mexico, in Toluca, central
Oh, yeah,
Mexico,
yeah, wow.
45
Nice
minutes away
place.
from it. It is beautiful, and they're famous for tacos al pastor. Pineapple,
Pork.
onions, cilantro, and pork meat.
And
grilled.
delicious.
It's amazing.
With the side of delicious.
It is much better on the street stand than in any sitting place. If you have to
Right.
eat your taco standing, that's going to be the best. But that also, I knew I would have to pay with 2 or 3 days of sitting in the toilet. Was
That's
it
when you
worth it?
know.
Yes.
That's when you know it's a good taco.
And it was worth it.
When you're willing to, you know, the oddest thing that I ever had somebody. I make lasagnas, and they have, as someone described it, why don't you just put shitload of cheese on the label? And so I put lots of cheese in it, and I had somebody come in, and she said, you know what? I bought that lasagna, and there was so much cheese in it. My husband he ended up with gout from the acids and all, the.
From one lasagna?
Yeah, well, they're
Jesus.
2 1/4 pounds.
Literally cheeses. Cool.
Yeah. There's meat and noodles. I mean, there's other things. It's not just a pile of cheese. But she said he wanted me to tell you that he got gout from it, and it was totally worth it. And I thought that's a pretty good compliment. So the tacos are so good, you're going to be on the toilet for 2 days, and you still are going to have a taco.
Okay, I know you're at the Crossroads Market. I'm going to go and pick up a lasagna. But out of curiosity, to me, everything is in the sauce. How do you flavor your sauce?
How do I flavor my sauce?
Unless it's a complete secret. And
Yeah, pretty much.
okay. But it's
I'll tell you
flavored.
one
It's
of
not
the things. It's the sauce is very flavorful, and there's a blend of spices that go into it. You know, the standards, Italian spices, and I also put honey in it. And the reason I put honey in it, and a lot of people put sugar in their tomato sauce to cut the acid. Right, you're shaking to cut the acid, but I don't like white sugar. Why take something that's already sweet and process the shit out of it, so you can somehow charge more. And in Mexico, I bought a bag of sugar at one of the grocery stores, and it was like the best sugar ever. Yes. And I said, "What's the process?" And they said, "We just grind up sugar cane.
Yes.
We don't put it through any kind of other process. We don't, and it's brown and it's granule and it's twice as sweet as white sugar. You have to use hardly any, and it's delicious. And I find natural honey does the same thing for knocking down the acid in the tomatoes.
Even though it comes out of a bee's butt. But it's very funny. If you go and try pop,
You ever ate a hot dog?
I guess it comes with the butt,
Yes.
not out of a butt, which is not
Yeah.
as bad. I love,
Not even on the side.
right?
Yeah.
I love Mexican pop, the
Cane
sugared
sugar.
stuff, until they switch the formula to corn syrup. And then it tastes just like the one in Canada. And you can still find old-fashioned Coke. They literally
Oh,
sell
you can buy it here in town
Oh, as
from
well?
Mexico, yeah. But
Yes.
here's the thing that I read that was a weird, odd thing. We always get to food on this show somehow. I love food. They had used so much corn to make corn sweeteners in Mexico that they had upped the price of corn tortillas, and it got hard which is like a staple of peasant food in Mexico, and they had upped the price so much it was getting out of the range for peasants to eat corn tortillas.
That's very sad. I'm used to
Isn't
the. I'm used to the. You have almost like a small assembly line of produced tortillas, and you can go and buy 1.5 kilos for less money than the paper that is wrapped. Like it's
Yeah.
super cheap, and it's super flavorful. They are so unprocessed that it's actually gray. Like they don't
Yeah.
color it or
Yeah.
anything. And it's delicious. They last 3 days. If you have them for any more days, it's moldy, so you have no preservatives. It is just flour and water, and it's delicious. Once you start charging more and start limiting access to food because of costs of whatever,
Right.
that's not the point of food. I feel regardless of how is the economic state of a country, you should be able to do your staples for almost nothing. Actually,
Yeah.
I was very picky. I had some stuff left over from celebrating Christmas, and I wanted bread with it. And so I went to the store and I wanted to buy pumpernickel bread. But even at Walmart, a loaf of pumpernickel bread was almost $5. And to me, it's like, wait a second. Shouldn't there be something that, bread, eggs, flour,
Should be the cheapest thing in
milk,
the grocery store.
because those are the staples, right? You can literally make a lot of meals with
Beans,
that,
rice.
but it should be
eggs.
accessible, right?
Yeah.
I used to work for a non-for-profit that used to help people in Calgary housing, low-income people. And we used to have hampers with food in it. And I didn't understand why until I understood that the prices at the store are inaccessible to people on low income. And how is that possible in a country that I, think it's on the top of the list of happiest places to live in the world? How is it possible that access to those staples is so expensive?
Profit.
I don't get it.
Profit. Well, and some of the staples too, I'm sure there's shipping issues. I'm having issues with getting my tomatoes in from Italy right now because of shipping.
Yes.
And my guy, Mike, that brings these in, he has a container sitting in Montreal that can't get here, and he's out of tomatoes, and it's driving me. So, 2 hours of my morning was looking for the right tomatoes. And they're going to go up. They're going to go, when I first started buying them, they were $28 a case. Now they're going to be $40.
Wow.
So what do?
Are you increasing the prices of your product to compensate?
I'm not going to have a choice, or I'm going to have to make a lesser product. And I really don't want to
don't do that.
No, I can't. I mean, I want to be really proud of what I make.
Of course.
And but is the market there? I mean, I think times are tough for people,
Yes. But for those who mass product, there is such a huge margin where they could cut some of their profit to still deliver something at the cost that's reasonable to those who have less money.
But it's you can get a lasagna wherever it does, whatever store you can name, for $10.
Yes.
Mine are 25. They're made with Italian sausage. They're made with Italian tomatoes. I make the lasagna sheets myself.
And gout-inducing amount of cheese.
Yeah. Tasty cheese. I've never gotten gout from it.
You maybe don't eat the entire lasagna on your own. The way you describe it,
No,
I
I cannot
probably
eat
would.
that much.
I'm very curious to try your lasagnas now, especially once you said Italian brought tomatoes. I'm like, you broke me. I gotta try it.
And literally, no offense to Canadian tomato growers, and I get it. It is a staple too, tomatoes. But they brought me, Mike and his dad brought me a can of tomatoes. I opened it up and went, all right, I want these. And just the color. I mean, it's what they do. It's like growing grapes for them. And they're so proud of their tomatoes. And actually, you know what? If you want a great local tomato, the Broxburn people that are right across the hall from me, they grow their own. They got a farm down in where the hell are they? Lethbridge, I think. So they grow these stunning little cherry tomatoes that are just I have never tasted a Canadian tomato that sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's all about soil, weather, water, care,
Good farmer.
nutrition, everything that they put on it. And sometimes you can't compete with nutrients that are not in the soil, right? So
Yeah.
that's why there's a huge difference between the tomatoes you use and the tomatoes even that you say, Lethbridge grown tomatoes. I lived in Lethbridge for quite a while of my experience, which was beautiful. I'm sad I moved, but I'm also happy that I moved because I now can be part of the film industry. And I can't remember locally grown produce except for the called Tabor potatoes and Tabor corn.
Yes. Tabor corn is a big deal here.
Where were those tomatoes in my days in Lethbridge? Because I love tomatoes.
I don't know.
Damn. I'm sad now.
They have a big greenhouse. They grow a lot of stuff outdoors.
Maybe it's a new thing.
They grow literally. Here, let me just. I'll charge Paul for this. They grow the best strawberries I have ever tasted, and they are ugly as hell. And basically, they're not genetically grown to be big and red
Yes.
and taste like paper. They taste like strawberries. And this is kind of the way they grow their food.
That's perfect. Nowadays, I gotta be honest, the ones that are in the package that look like they were all the same size, color, and everything, they're also picked.
Yeah.
They sorted to fit that particular profile. And I'm sure that the stuff that's, put in strawberry products, jam, juice, whatever, it's tasty, but it doesn't look good. But
is it tasty because of the fruit that's used or because of what they do to the fruit they use?
Probably the latter.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of chemical process before it gets to your table. Even those strawberries that, come in a little plastic thing, they've had so many things applied to them to last the shipment, to last at the store, to survive the refrigeration and the de-refrigeration.
Right.
They are, aside from the genetic modification, they have chemical enhancements.
Yeah. Well, there are no local farms in Manhattan.
Yes.
You
Maybe
know?
on roofs of,
Maybe.
of some fancy
You know what they did
stores.
for a while in California? And it was one of those where you go, okay, now that's brilliant. So there are a lot of homeless in California because the weather is phenomenal and they don't freeze to death in the winter. And they took, where they have the big power lines and they have the giant robot-looking towers with all the cables and stuff. They opened some of those up for the homeless to go in and start farms. And they were growing their own food.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, I'm pretty sure they've gotten that shut down, because somebody paid too much money into somebody's campaign.
California does a lot of innovation, and sometimes it's kept, sometimes it doesn't. The electric vehicle being one of them.
Yes.
They had the Clean Energy Act that lasted 2 years, created the first mass-produced beautiful EV, and then as soon as the legislation was taken down, so were the vehicles. So I'm sure that some of those farms were great until somebody decided that were not for whatever reason.
Well, we're not making money off that. I can't believe in within the borders of our two nations, America and Canada, we can't grow enough food to feed everybody. I just, mathematically, that stuns me.
Winters are tough, but there's a lot of perennial stuff.
But I'm counting the U.S. too. There's Although, you know, a lot of California now is just homes.
You mentioned in one of your recent episodes about farmers being paid not to grow stuff.
Yeah, that's
And
how they control the price of
why would a
produce.
farmer ever agree to that? You basically are paid to own land and do nothing with it?
I don't know. You know, I think personally, in my opinion, and you can write and tell me I'm wrong, but I said it's in my opinion, so I don't give a shit what you say. In my opinion, most farmers are really, really proud people.
Yes.
And they want to feed people, and they work their asses off.
Yes.
And at a certain point, they realize they're probably not financially rewarded to the degree they should be for how important their job is.
I totally agree. It's one of the toughest jobs on your body and
However,
probably on your mind.
Leonardo DiCaprio paid a fortune because he's an excellent actor.
Do you feel that sometimes, regardless of what the profession could be,
Yep.
entertainers sometimes can be overpaid?
Oh, sure. You know, when I was working nonstop, even just in comedy, I was for the amount. I guess part of the thing is it's really easy for me to do stand up, and I love it. And so,
Yes.
at one point in time, I financially was really well rewarded for it, and it was probably more than I actually deserved for the amount of work that I put into it. Whereas there are some comedians that work really, really hard at it and earn every nickel they make.
So at a certain point, would you say when you felt you were making more than enough, you would have said, "Nah, I'm okay with this"? You probably wouldn't.
No, of course not.
So that's a.
But
I
I
think
wasn't.
that's
I wasn't making Leonardo money.
But I think at a certain point, Leonardo would not say, "Hey, you know what? You don't need to pay me that much. I'll still be part of your project." And I think,
I think some actors do that, though.
really,
I think some actors. Who was it that he did a film? Oh, he was in Grosse Point Blank. Anyway, he did a film.
John Cusack, Dan
Yes.
Aykroyd. Okay.
He was in a film that was about the art store owner, or museum, whatever, that Hitler was trying to sell paintings to, and it was the first time where I went, Hitler painted? That's a really weird. And apparently he was prolific but shitty.
Yes.
And so this guy was, and it was really, for most people, probably not a great film. For me, it was, number one, really entertaining. I like Cusack, and it was really informative. So I liked a lot of aspects about this movie. And I remember somebody interviewing him and said, well, how can you go from doing a movie like that to doing some of the, as they called it, I believe, schlock shit that you do? And he said, you know what? I do the schlock shit because they pay me tons of money for me to do it. And then I get to do the films I want to do, and I don't give a shit if they pay me at all.
I like that.
That I thought was, well, good for you.
If anybody wants to pay me a huge amount of money to be in their film, I'll take it. I'm
Yes.
not against it. Even if it's an absurd amount of money. Like
Obscene. Like just...
I don't think any amount of money is obscene. Nowadays, we've demonstrated that gazillionaires, billionaires, it's...
Who are the people that have gotten the richest through COVID? The already rich. Somebody told me
Yes.
one time, and he's got a lot of money, he said, all you got to do is get that first million, then the second one's easy. And then you just keep building on that. And it was like, yeah, for you. And you know what? Standing in front of an audience for an hour telling jokes or telling stories, which I do story humor, is easy for me. But he could never do that. But, why didn't I get his skill?
But it took you a wealth of experience to get to tell those stories, to amass those stories, to tell them in a way that people find funny and entertaining. It's not an hour of work. It's a lifetime of work that you put onto that 1 hour of performance.
It's not a lifetime. It's a lifetime of living and figuring out how to tell your story. My mom always said everybody has a book in them. Everybody could write a book. Some of them just wouldn't be worth reading.
And there's a lot of that, what I consider transformational entertainment, the one that is worth reading, right?
Yeah.
And passionate about those stories rather than the ones that, you know. And by the way, humor has one of those very interesting things. I think it's easy to make people cry. It's much more difficult to make people laugh. Because it really, you have to strip a lot of things as a person to admit something is funny and connect with that.
Yeah, there is a guard goes up.
Absolutely. Especially in a public forum where other people can hear you laugh and a lot of strangers.
I have told more than one audience, you know, it's okay, I don't like you either. I said the bad part about this is I'm really good at doing this, and by the end of it, you'll really like me and you'll be laughing and you'll just fucking hate yourself for it. And I love, and they usually, like you did, start laughing at that, and then the ice is broken.
But it took you a lot of trial and error to get there.
Oh, yeah, it did.
And so that's why an hour that today looks easy, 20 years ago probably wasn't as easy.
More like 30. I've been doing it like 35 years. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, when I first started, you'd kill to have 10 minutes of material.
I tried stand-up comedy once, and my issue is English is not even my second language. So a lot of my jokes were translations from, you know, what was funny back in the Ukraine, which wasn't funny in university language.
Yes.
So I did it once and understood my sense of humor is so completely different from what people find funny.
But
I'm
no,
just hitting it a different
not
tree.
all. It may be your sense of humor might be different from what the general public would find really funny, but you probably have a core of people that would relate to what you're saying, and they would find you hugely funny.
Yes, but to be able to be okay with not being funny for that other huge chunk of people is very challenging.
That's a tough one.
Yes, and I don't have that tough skin. I think comedians have the toughest skin ever.
Or we're just idiots. We're just, you know what? We just want to be good at it so bad.
I need some of that. Let me grab it by osmosis or something.
That I can't do.
Damn it. I tried to steal it, but it doesn't happen.
You know what if you ever need somebody to, this is what I'm good at when it comes to a TV show or film project, punch up. I can make anything you have funnier.
That is important. That's a
I
super
can look
skill.
at it way differently, but I can't necessarily write the part that you wrote to get my head to where you need it to be to finish it.
The punch up is the most important part. You can,
You gotta have clay to make a statue.
but the spice is what makes your sauce yours. That's the cool part. Because everybody can make tomato sauce. It might be mediocre, but what makes it stand up and want other people to get it, it's your secret ingredients, the honey that you put in there, the Italian spices.
Well, and you know what? I have a neighbor that is going to remain nameless, but he had somebody come back with one of his products, and I've never heard of this, but they didn't care for it. And he was quite upset. And I said, you know what? It's okay for people not to like what you make. Obviously, you're really successful. So the majority of people love what you do. So don't focus on that one person. You know, focus on the fact that all of these other people, and I mean, I've had one or two people come back and I didn't really care for that. Well, let me get you your money back. How would that be?
Wow, I didn't imagine that's a possibility at the market.
Why not?
I don't know. That transaction to me usually, unless it's a subscription, it ends
I'm
when
not,
I
you know
purchase
what?
the product.
Long hauler. I'm looking at the long run. You know what'll happen? It's like I had too much pasta on at the end of the day Sunday, and I've got some frozen that I don't usually sell really, and I started just handing it to people. If they bought a jar of sauce, here, take a bag of pasta. And they're like, oh, I can't believe you gave this to me. I said, yeah, you'll never eat dry pasta again. It will benefit me to give you fresh, unbelievable pasta, and then you'll be back.
How do you keep it fresh? You don't
It's 7 days,
Oh, I see. Okay.
and then it's gone.
I never experienced that kind of pasta before, I gotta be honest. I mean, probably at a restaurant.
I will give you a bag. Yeah, if it was a really good Italian restaurant, you had fresh.
I'm excited about it. I didn't even know that al dente existed until by accident undercooked pasta, and I'm like, oh wait, this is better. This is so much better than
Now, mine actually cooks in 3 minutes. And the
Wow.
angel hair, I'm not making it right now because business is not busy enough. But the really, what else are the spaghettini, the tiny,
Yeah.
tiny one? I don't cook it. I put the sauce on it, and by the time you stir it, pasta's done
I
because it's
know.
so small.
Yeah, I see. It's like the very cut thin of slice of beef that they put in pho. That is,
Yeah,
they bring it raw, and by the time you put it in the
yeah. They
pho,
put
it's
it in,
cooked.
put it into the soup, and the soup cooks it.
So why did you get into pasta specifically?
Because a guy that I knew was selling his machine, and I needed something to do.
You weren't into pasta before that?
Oh yeah, I made pasta at home.
Okay.
I made Italian. I love Italian food. I love Mexican food too.
Have you ever tried to do a merger of Italian and Mexican flavors in
I've
a
done some
lasagna?
really weird. I did a. I make barbecue sauce too,
Ooh,
and
nice.
I made a barbecue chicken linguine, and I did samples out, and people take the sample. That's really good. Can I have just the spaghetti and meat sauce? You don't want the chicken? No, it's weird. It's just there's something not right about that. So I don't know. I would try that. My
Taco
neighbor
lasagna.
who has been on the show has a spice company, and he has pretty much anything I would need to make anything.
I heard it on the last episode as well, and I'm excited to check that out because there's some chiles from Mexico, especially dry
Oh,
ones
this
that
is
are
your
hard to
guy.
find.
Yeah, you got to come and see him too.
I haven't been to a regular market in a long time. Just I go there to grab some either lamb or pierogies. Nostalgia, and my spouse likes lamb, so we go for that. And I actually never
We got
purchase
we
anything
got a
that's
really
out
good
there.
lamb guy at Crossroads too.
Yeah, and Crossroads is not far. I mean, I used to go to that market in the summer quite a lot,
Right.
but I don't buy made stuff. I buy produce usually, and
Yeah.
I
And
like
in the
the
summer there's
sausage.
the farmers
Yes,
come in from BC, so
yes, and it's delicious.
yeah. It's fresh. You don't get it's not always the freshest here in Alberta.
I know. I
It's
miss
like
that
I'll
in the
order
winter.
a glass of water in the winter and somebody will go, "Do you want lemon in that?" Oh no. No, I have no idea how old that lemon is.
It's the stuff that's garnishing the drink is probably the least healthy of the things that you can put on anything
Yeah.
because it's been out for a while. Nobody refrigerates that ever and cleans that either. So it has all of the people's breath on top of
Immunity
it.
makers. Let's call them that. If you don't watch it, it's got immunity makers.
Would you like a slice of immunity maker on your water? That's the question.
Yeah.
I
No,
like it.
because it's usually really off by the time you get it.
I know. And citrus is the most expensive thing you get here in terms
Yeah.
of fruit.
Well, you
It's
can't grow it in Canada. Not much. So do you in the Ukraine, what is the product? What is the Ukraine makes the best what?
That's a difficult question. In my days,
Yeah.
I grew up Jewish Ukrainian, so my food is mostly Jewish,
Oh,
not
okay.
Ukrainian. But we weren't rich at all. We're like regular
A lot of
people.
potato latkes.
A lot of boiled potatoes and herring.
Oh,
Sometimes
okay.
vegetable and fruit, but most of the time, the fruit I had was whatever we could grow in the summer to can it throughout the rest of the year.
So how much in Canada? We're certainly not talking about film that much anymore, are we? How much in Canada you look at it and go, boy, you guys, you just, especially when you first got here, you do not appreciate what you have.
This is the beauty of Canada. There are so many different perspectives. I think people are eventually appreciative of everything once they understand where it comes from and the hard work that it takes to get there. So I never felt that way. And my transition was Ukraine to Mexico, then Mexico to LA, then LA here. It was a little bit like yours when you went from Los Angeles to Edmonton. I went from Los Angeles to Lethbridge. So it was, black and
Yeah.
white contrast of I brought the biggest suitcase you can fit on an airplane, 55 pounds. I arrived in January. I was outside of the Greyhound bus depot. I put the suitcase down, and the wind just took it. And I
55
understood this is
pounds.
going to be a journey.
Yeah.
And then this is after 2.5 years of university education in LA. I take a cab, and the cab and I didn't understand each other. Now I didn't understand the guy because he was from Newfoundland, but I didn't know that accent was the
Yeah, it
thing.
is good. Oh, you didn't know it was the Canadian act? Oh, that's
No, and
hilarious.
we didn't understand each other whatsoever. So, and then I had room and board with the Mormon family, and I had no idea of the
A good
rules
Jewish boy
and
like
different
you
stuff.
living with the Mormons?
But coming from LA, which I was very spoiled with food, drinks, and the LA debauchery, if you want to call it that way.
Yep.
So when I got to a Mormon household and all of these rules being laid in front of me, like don't bring girls, don't bring food, don't bring drinks, alcoholic
Right.
drinks, I'm like, what happened? This is Canada?
How
I
did
thought
this-
this is the place where the American dream becomes reality.
Did you feel your rights were being infringed upon?
No, I was a guest at the house.
Look at how polite you are.
How
How do you find? Do you always find John finds guests way nicer than me?
I had terrible
not that
asshole
hard.
moments. I had terrible asshole moments which I don't publicly share, but I think I've paid a lot back when karma hits me back, and I'm like, yeah, I deserve this, absolutely, and I'm okay with it,
Yeah, I've been bit in the ass a few times.
right? But then you realize, okay, this is what it is for. I get it. I deserve it. Cool.
There's always a message, isn't there?
Sometimes I don't get it till years after, and that's the thing. Because sometimes it's like, why me? Why this? Why? And then eventually the other shoe drops, and you're like, oh, because I made choices. And then the
Yeah.
repercussions eventually catch up, or never do. Like I can't believe that sometimes people go throughout life committing crimes and never get caught. Actually, that's a big chunk of.
Oh,
criminals.
there's no fairness.
And I wish
Trump,
to be one
that,
of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to be one of those smooth criminals that never get caught, and do
That they
something.
make a film about.
Maybe,
You were so cool that, yeah.
or just happily and luckily elusive that nobody just bother looking. Catch Me If You Can, one of the best examples.
You know what? And you know what? That would be a film that, on the outside, if you look at it, you go, well, that's just going to be some kind of silly. It's an excellent movie.
It is. It's hilarious. And then you have
Is that Leonardo?
yes,
With Tom Hanks?
yes, and then you have the juxtaposition of that with Blow, which is roughly the same premise of a guy.
That kind of covered
Getting
my
away with
time
it.
in L.A.
Both Catch Me If You Can and Blow.
More of the blow.
Okay.
But
But then you have exactly the same idea of a biopic of a real criminal that got away with it until they didn't, and the consequences of that. But then that was more than drama in action rather than. I feel Catch Me If You Can. If it's still a good feel-good movie.
yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay sometimes to watch a movie that makes you feel good.
Yes, and it made me think a lot about as well as to how you can create a fraudulent check system. Anyway,
Can't do that stuff anymore.
no, nobody uses checks.
No.
But the guy stayed working for the fraud department for the FBI or some
For the
other-
rest of his career, I
It was
think.
beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. So that is the power of transportative filmmaking for me. It's like I remember that film. It transformed me in one way or another to remember it, because I watch a lot
Sure.
of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff I can't tell you the plot of it or what was about. I know I've seen it, but I can't tell you what it was about. That wasn't a transformative piece of entertainment.
Yeah.
But movies like Blow or Catch Me If You Can or Saving Private Ryan
affect
or
you.
short films that are meaningful.
Yeah, Saving Private
remember.
Ryan was a pretty amazing film.
I rewatch that film maybe twice a year at least,
Yeah.
because there's something that they catch each time that is just amazing, whether it's production or acting, and it's just mind-blowingly good.
You said something earlier that kind of, I believe, where you somewhat, the gist of what you were saying was you can pick out something about a film. I can actually watch a film and go, I've had people go, how could you watch that thing? I said, well, blah, blah was stunning in it. Like I just sat around and waited for him to come back on screen. And I got to watch that performance, and that was the best part of that whole film.
Yes.
And it's, I like the scene stealers, the guys that just
Absolutely.
cruise in. There's a guy, I haven't seen him in a long time, Kevin Stobo here in town, that we did a project together, and it was a pilot for a show, and a very interesting concept. I'll tell you about it sometime. But I just said, you're like the biggest scene stealing mother I have ever. And he'd only have 2 lines. And we'd do all of the setup, and then Kevin would walk in and go, blah, 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 blah. It was like Kramer, right? And he would just walk in and drop his line and leave. And it was like, yeah, I'm starting to hate that guy.
And there's a lot of fantastic actors that literally have 1 or 2 scenes, and they are marketed as, I'm going to do that shtick, and that's what they go for, and I want to be that guy.
And have a lifelong career doing it.
Yes, I would love to be that. Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction is a clear example. Goes in, does the business, and to me, he's the highlight of the movie.
But you know what? He's a horrible human being, and what he does for a living is a terrible thing to do for a living. But you can't help go, that's a cool guy.
And to be honest, I don't know what he does for a living, and that's one of the weird things that I feel.
Oh, he was a cleaner.
Oh, do you mean that
character?
That character. Okay,
Yeah.
I gotcha. I thought you were talking about what he does in real life aside from acting.
I think that's all. Pretty much the acting's probably carrying his.
I feel
Debt
there's
load.
a lot of actors have the side gig for the times that they are not acting. A lot of actors are realtors and have businesses.
But they're who was it? He did The Hurt.
Kurt Locker? Jeremy Renner?
Yeah,
Yes.
he had a construction company in L.A. He
That's
went to
cool.
L.A. and he was trying to become an actor, and then he started he was, I think, a carpenter by trade, and then he started a renovations company,
That's awesome.
and he may still own it, and somebody else operates it for him, but that's what he did because he needed money.
I totally get it. That's what I need to do. I need to find.
But isn't it a
something
great
that-
grounded thing
It
to
is.
do something real?
Yes. Something that you can actually create and get from point
Yeah.
A to point B. Not a service, but an actual tangible something. Like you create something tangible aside
The
from
food.
the fact that you're passionate about it and you love doing it.
Yeah.
Which
But
is
the
an added
stand-up part,
bonus.
and I always said this, 10 minutes after the show, it's gone. Like, I don't even...
Do you like people approaching you and saying, "Dude, you're so funny"? Do you have people approaching you after a show, and do you enjoy that feeling?
I mean, people tell you they really liked it, or because I was on a morning show, there were people that, I watched you when I was a kid, which just makes me feel really
older
old.
than you are.
Old. Well, I'm 63. I'm pretty old. But there are a couple of people that really just don't like me, and they don't get it. They just say, I don't understand why everybody thinks you're so goddamn funny. I don't get it. I just say, that's okay. Who do you find funny? And they'll tell me, I go watch him.
That's fair.
That's, what are you doing here? If you know you don't like me, my girlfriend brought me. Well, that's okay.
You have one of those very important skills that I feel I don't have as an entertainer, which is being okay with people not liking either what you do or how you do it, and you don't take it personal.
No, I mean, that's the thing that took a long time to get to.
Because I would love to have just
Used to kill me if somebody didn't.
Right?
There would always be like one person in an audience not laughing to kill me. Like it would be my goal to make that asshole laugh. And everybody else is laughing. I'm like, what's wrong with that guy? And I focused on that, and it could ruin the night for the rest of the
The
people,
feel
which was
is
stupid.
different because you're chasing that one. I want to please this person.
Yeah.
And as an actor, I feel the same way, even though I don't know what the final product is going to end up like. But sometimes I get detached from the performance because I have the feeling that in my, left rear quadrant, somebody is not enjoying what I'm doing or not even paying attention.
But sometimes as an actor, it's your job to have people not like you.
Yes.
And
And I
to be
prefer
good
that.
at it.
I prefer that. I prefer somebody to hate me rather than love me because I feel that is a more primordial feeling.
Well, and I'll tell you, the what I'm picking up is if you like that, and the fact that I feel like you're a really nice human being, that is indicative of how good of an actor you are. If you can, because you have, you know what, you've got something about your face that is, you have a very likable face and a likable manner. So to be able to act like someone that they despise is a great accomplishment.
Maybe I'm the other way around, and I'm a very despicable guy pretending very well to be not a despicable
Trust me, I'm an
guy.
asshole. I know another asshole when I
Takes
run
one to
into
know
them.
one. I see.
And I usually like them. I usually like most of my friends are kind of like in the market. I say, I'm friends with all the grumpy old bastards.
Do you
Little
have a club?
Yeah, a little club.
Oh, that's nice. What do you do on your time when you're not interacting with customers? Do you
Well, you walk by the other
do mean
grumpy old
things?
bastards and do this. That's it. No, we chat. I mean, they're good guys down in their heart, but they've been around for a while.
You don't wish each other a small prostate or anything? It's like, you're okay, dude.
No, you know what? We a lot of us said, honest to God, I want to see everybody in business in there making a fortune.
That's the way it should be.
I
man.
want everyone to do well. And it did take me a long time to figure this out too. Was somebody bought this cup from you for $5? They weren't my customer. That wasn't my $5. I don't need to think, well, how come you got that sale and I didn't? Well, why? Because you don't sell cups, you dipshit. You know what I mean? It's like,
I understand what you mean.
that's
exactly.
what they came there for.
Absolutely. And by the way, especially in a small community like a market, it's if somebody makes a purchase there, even if it's not yours, it's a win. I feel the same way for a very
Because they'll come back to the market
and hopefully
and you'll get your chance out of it.
exactly. It's the same way I feel about the small acting community here in Alberta.
Yeah.
I celebrate other actors' successes, even though they got the part I auditioned for, because I'm happy to see that an Albertan, and even though an actor I know, got that part, instead of it being outsourced somewhere else.
Yeah. There's
which
something great about that.
It is, and I'm really hoping that there will be a lot of Alberta actors seeing a lot of action from productions coming in.
Well, the more
and
productions that come in here, the more work there will be for people.
hopefully for Albertans, because
And,
they
yeah.
outsource a lot.
But
of
also the
speaking roles.
opportunity to, and there are some, correct me if I'm wrong, some fairly large productions being done here
Yes.
with very influential people that Alberta actors would maybe not get a chance to be in front of.
Yes. This is the funny part when I mentioned I'm not acting as much now that I joined the union. I'm auditioning way more, which means I have more opportunities of being on those bigger name shows like The Last of Us,
Right.
instead of indie work, which does hire a lot of the Alberta actors. I honestly feel there's a huge gap between roles available in Alberta and the people that actually get those roles. Because unfortunately, most of the spoken principal and supporting lead roles of productions that will be in Alberta for a long time are still brought in from LA, Vancouver, New York,
Right.
Toronto. And that is something I hope changes, because there's so much talent locally that even if you look at it business-wise, you don't have to pay for people's lodging, for other expenses.
Yeah,
and
there's a financial gain.
absolutely. Aside from the fact that our community has so much interesting and new stuff to give that the screen hasn't seen yet. Rough faces like mine, for example.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, it was fun. It's always fun. John always surprises me with guests.
Thank you
Good,
for
and
having
they are.
me
You,
over.
you get good guests. It's great. Makes my job easy. It's not really a
rock.
job. It's a chit chat.
That's the important part. It was one of the most pleasant things that happened to me in January, even though it's, an early time, but I'm going to remember this for a long time. Thank you for sharing your experience, and I'm going to learn a lot.
Oh, thank you for sharing your experience.
My pleasure.
It's always great for me to see people that come from other places, and which I did, and appreciate Canada for what it is.
I love this country a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's a good
beautiful.
place to be.
It is.
All right. Once again, thank you very much, Gin Fedotov, for being on the show. People can look you up. We'll have some contact info thrown on there for you.
Thank you.
Big thanks again to Liz from the Camera Store. Once again, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe, like, hug, Send us a heart, whatever you do on YouTube. Listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And this we will have an interesting show for you again next week. Thanks.